Mr. President, both of those principles were challenged on January 6, 2021. A mob that was incited by then-President Trump attacked the Capitol for the explicit purpose of using violence to overturn the peaceful transfer of power. They were trying to intimidate elected politicians to substitute their judgment, their preferred candidate for president, instead of acknowledging the will of the people that they represented. But our democracy endured. That is the very good news. And in testament to that, we just witnessed a renewal of America's commitment to the peaceful transfer of power with the inauguration of Donald Trump as our 47th president. However, Mr. President, I speak today, sadly, about one of the first actions of President Trump. And that, of course, is pardoning 1,600 people and commuting sentences of 14 very dangerous criminals who were involved in that violent attack on January 6th. Mr. President, speaking for myself, I condemn that action by President Trump. Mr. President, I was there that day. Many of us were. I was in the gallery of the House of Representatives. It's a day I won't forget, but America will never forget. It's had a deep impact on our country, the citizens, the folks who work here, and that honorable tradition of the peaceful transfer of power. You know, I was very amazed and proud to see officers, men and women, who withstood this assault. More than 150 officers from the U.S. Capitol Police and the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department were injured that day. 5 officers died in the aftermath. And there was severe damage to the Senate chamber, the House chamber, the office buildings, and the Capitol Rotunda, where we just had another inauguration only a few days ago. Blood, feces, glass, and other debris from the mob's attack was everywhere at a cost of close to $3 million. So, Mr. President, how is it that one of the first acts of our president, who wants to be a unifier, was to pardon those people who acted with such violence, such anger, and such contempt? President Trump has tried to erase this attack and rewrite the history of what happened on January 6th, calling the insurrectionists, including those who fought with the police, patriots and hostages. They were neither. Mr. President, I ask, should the President of the United States pardon a person who was sentenced to 7 months in federal prison for stealing a police riot shield from an officer and then using it to assault officers? Should a person who's affiliated with a neo-Nazi group and who was serving a sentence for breaking the law in Charlottesville in 2017 and who quoted Hitler before assaulting law enforcement in the U.S. Capitol, should that person be pardoned? I say no. Mr. President, should a president pardon a person who led an organization who orchestrated this riot after being convicted by a jury of impartial citizens and being convicted of seditious conspiracy? Mr. President, I say no. Should a president pardon a person who was sentenced to more than 6 years for beating the police with a metal whip, assaulting them with bear spray, something that can cause lasting eye damage? Should that person be pardoned? I say no. Mr. President, should a person who at his own trial said he didn't think he was subject to the laws governing the United States, and who before storming the Capitol bragged that what the British did to D.C. will be nothing compared to what he does, should that person be pardoned? I say no. Mr. President, should a person who said many of us should be hanged, should that person be pardoned? I say no. Mr. President, I am very proud of the men and women of our law enforcement community, the U.S. Capitol Police and the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, who stood their positions and defended the Capitol and defended the peaceful transfer of power. And I have in mind someone who was standing over me in the Capitol when I was in the gallery, and the mob was trying to break down the doors, breaking the glass of the House chamber. And this officer was a young man who commuted to work from about an hour away. He had 2 young children. He had his gun out, and I looked in his face and I could see the last thing in the world he wanted to do was have to use that weapon. But I saw that he was going to do his job in whatever was required to protect the people who were in that gallery. And I just thought to myself, how is it the people who are attacking can have such disregard for the reality of this person's life and how much it would change his life if he actually had to use that firearm? And I'm proud, too, of Officer Brian Sicknick, who lost his life, Officer Howard Liebengood, Officer Jeffrey Smith, Officer Gunther Hishida, Officer Kyle DeFreytag, all of whom died in the aftermath of January 6th. These presidential pardons are disrespectful. They're also dangerous. They're disrespectful to the men and women who served, who suffered the violence, and are living with the consequences. And they're dangerous to the men and women of law enforcement who serve us every day. The pardons validate the violence of the mob and dishonor the service of those who protect us. Mr. President, these unconscionable and appalling actions of January 6th should be repudiated by every member of Congress. And whatever differences we have, it is vital that those differences be resolved at the ballot box and that the will of the people always be respected. No citizen, however passionate they may be about their political beliefs, no matter how disappointed they may be at the outcome of an election, is justified in attacking the men and women of the Capitol Police. Their actions should be condemned by each of us and by our president. Those actions should not be condoned with pardons. Mr. President, I yield back.